But now we're going to talk about Lockout Tagout. And basically, Lockout Tagout is a series of codes that are designed to keep people safe around energy hazards associated with any type of equipment that runs on any kind of energy. All right? And in California, they're generally grouped under Title 8, Section 3314, which is comparable to Fed OSHA's 1910-147. All right? And they require that equipment-specific procedures be written for all energy sources with shutoff means labeled for every piece of equipment that requires them. The procedures have to be updated annually, and they have to be written for equipment with one or more energy sources that are made, unless the equipment is made safe, by simply unplugging it and there's no stored energy on board, or that the equipment can't be shut off for life safety reasons. Like, for example, air handling units on an animal care facility. And in those situations, we have to make comparable safe procedures to work on that equipment live. Okay? So what does it apply to is a lot more than utility energy. It's all forms of energy. It's mechanical springs and tension or compression, compressed gas cylinders and elevated counterweights, even heat, parked vehicles on a slope, or any kind of stored energy such as fuels, capacitors, and batteries. Or it might be applied to rotating flywheels, fans in ductwork systems, or even just the flow of air through the ductwork system, moving, sliding, and rolling parts. And then finally, the utility energy sources that you more commonly think of, electricity being the primary one, but there's also air, compressed air, steam, domestic water, and hydraulics, and others. And it applies to all different kinds of pieces of equipment. From my favorite plasma tube over here at UCLA, there might be 40 procedures needing to be written in that photograph alone. To our vacuum deposition chamber, which probably has at least 2 procedures that should be written for it. To our capacitor bank, which has to have a procedure written for it. To our gel plate, which has to have a procedure written for it. All right? And then, of course, our facilities, which should have procedures written for those as well. All right? So let's talk a little bit about how you go about doing this in a very practical manner. Well, for electricity, there's lots of different ways you can lock and tag things out. If you have a piece of plug-driven equipment, you can put a simple plug lock on it, where you unplug the device. You put the plug in something like this, with the wire coming out. You close this up. You put a lock on it. Now it can't be plugged in. Right? And they come in all different shapes and sizes. Pass those around. And colors. A lot of the stuff I have up here today is red, but it doesn't have to be red. It can be any color. Okay? There's also circuit breakers. You can put these locks on circuit breakers. You can even put them on just the 2 prongs. So you might have a piece of equipment that has a bad bearing, a drill, hand drill for example, it has a bad bearing, needs to have a bearings replaced on it. You can put a plug lock on it so nobody will use that drill until it's been repaired and it's back in service. It's a good way to control and repair equipment that's needing repair. For things that run on gases and compressed fluids and liquids other than and not electricity, there's also many different types of lockout tagout devices. So, and they come again in all different shapes and sizes. You simply take the device, put it on the hand, close the valve, put this around the handle, install your lock, and now nobody can turn the valve. Okay? Put this going through it. Here's one of my favorites. You have a compressed air tool, say an air gun or a hammer gun, a nail gun or something like that. It needs to have some work done on it. It's not in good repair. You can simply take one of these little handy-dandy devices. It has 3 different size nozzles available. You find the right size nozzle, you stick it on your male adapter, locked in place, and now it can't get plugged in. Okay? It's a good way to control the use of air-operated equipment that may need repairs. We also have bars and blocks that we can put into clamping devices. There's wedges that you can put under your truck tire in the event that you're parked on a slope. Or even a steering wheel cover that you can lock onto a vehicle that might be out of repair. For example, if you have a forklift with a leak, a hydraulic leak on it, you can lock a steering wheel cover on it until the forklift gets fixed, so nobody would use that machine. Okay? You can use a cable lock on many, many different applications. One of them is a heat blanket. You can put onto a hot surface to protect yourself. You wrap the cable lock around the heat blanket, or through a whole series of locks and locking devices and isolation, cinch it up, and now it's not going anywhere with your lock on it until you remove your lock. And then things like blinding flanges, which you can actually put right into a piping system if you're working downstream from that would prevent any flow of material through the pipe. These are common automobile stands you go down and buy for $20 at a local automotive store. They're great for lowering counterweights and things onto to safely support counterweights while you're working on pieces of equipment. And you may have a situation where you need to have a bleeder valve, where you want to make sure that whatever piping you're working on, no pressure can build up, and you want to lock the valves open so that it can bleed any pressure off to atmosphere. All right? So let's talk about locks themselves and who does lockout tagout. First of all, each worker who's going to do lockout tagout are supplied with their own locks, and they have the only key to that lock set. They're provided by their supervisor or department, and they're placed by each worker at each lockout tagout point during a job. All right? Hasps are used when more than one person has to put their lock on one lockout tagout point. So, and they come in all different shapes and sizes. Some of them have the tag built right into the hasp. So, for example, here's a hasp tag. You can put up to 6 locks on that. All right? Or the hasps themselves can go on like this, and you can add a tag to them. Pass those around. And you can go hasps on hasps. So you can have a whole ton of locks hanging on a lockout tagout point, depending upon what you're trying to lock out and how many people are working on that piece of equipment. And it's not uncommon when more than one person is working on the same piece of equipment to see multiple locks on the lockout tagout point. Here's a good use of a cable lock through a couple of large water valves on a big water distribution system. Okay. So when is it applied? When is lockout tagout applied? Well, it's applied to all types of energy powered by one or more energy sources, equipment powered by one or more energy sources, whenever the equipment guard is removed or safety interlock is bypassed, whenever a person must place any part of their body into potentially operating equipment, or when the equipment might unexpectedly move or be energized. All right? So let's test your understanding of this. We've got a job we got to do in a lab building. We have a lab building vacuum system that's in the basement, and we're going to shut it down for 1 hour and change the filters on the pumps and drain and sample and classify any aspirant from the tanks and install a new rain guard on the exhaust pipe up on the roof. We need 2 plumbers and 1 EH&S hazmat specialist for the job. And here's the job. All right? Here's our 2 vacuum systems. There's the electrical disconnect on each vacuum pump, the inlet valve on each vacuum pump, and then the sampling ports. So the 2 lockout tagout points on this are the inlet valve and the electrical shutoff. and the inlet valve, and the electrical shutoff. So how many lockout tagout points for the whole job? 6? Wrong. 4. Because actually what we're doing is we're draining these things. So these are going to be open, and they're going to be attended by the EH&S hazmat specialist. So there's 4 lockout tagout points. So 4 lockout tagout points, 3 people doing the work. How many hasps will be needed? I heard 12 hasps. Is that true? I heard 6 hasps. Is that true? 4 hasps. All right. 2 electrical, 2 inlet valves. All right. How many locks will be needed?
6 locks. 6 locks?
I hear 6 locks. 12. I hear 12. 12. 4 lockout tagout points times 3 people working. Right?
Each point.
12 locks. But I can tell you, you can do this job with 7 locks.
I got 6.
How? By using a lockbox. What is a lockbox? This is a lockbox.
One box.
Here's what you do. You have 4 lockout tagout points. You put 4 locks on those 4 points, and you take those 4 keys and you put them in the lockbox. You close up the lockbox, lock it down. You now put a hasp on the lockbox, and each worker puts their 1 lock on the hasp. Now they go to work. All right? They come back when they're done, take their lock off. The last person to take their lock off, the hat can open the hasp, open the lockbox, take out the 4 keys, go around and unlock all the lockout tagout points, remove the locks, bring the system up. 7 locks, not 12. And now every worker only has to go to 1 location to remove their lock, the lockbox. With the exception of the poor guy or gal who is the last one that has to run around and remove all the other ones. All right? So if you've got a complex piece of equipment with multiple energy sources on it, using a lockbox may be a more efficient way you go about doing lockout tagout for that particular piece of equipment. Either one is perfectly acceptable and in compliance with the code, but this is just one of the ways you might want to do it instead. Okay? Great. How many tags will be needed? None. Why?
Is it locked out?
Not because you're locked out. How long is the job?
About 1 hour.
1 hour. 1 hour.
You're not leaving the
And nobody's leaving the job site, right? Unless you have a really small bladder. All right? It's a very short job. There's always going to be somebody at that job site that knows why all those locks are on there. So if anybody else walks up and says, hey, why are these locks on here? You're going to be able to say, oh, because John's on the roof changing the rain guard, right? So that's why. You don't need any tags in that situation. Tags are used when you need to convey information to somebody else at another time. If you have to leave the job site and go somewhere else and leave something locked out, you've got to put a tag on it that tells who you are, why you put it there, and how to get a hold of you if I want more information. All right? But as long as you stay on site, you don't need a tag. All right? So once we know about who's going to do our lockout tagout, we need to know what our equipment is and in the inventory that we need to have lockout tagout done for. So we need to create equipment inventory, document and summarize that, and track when the lockout procedures for that equipment are developed, and then annually verify how the procedures are accurate, or whether the procedures remain accurate or need to be adjusted. All right? Once we know that equipment, we're actually supposed to label the location of each lockout tagout point for that equipment. Now we have currently a paper process to develop the procedure. And I will honestly tell you, very few people use it. All right? Because it's onerous, and it's really difficult to manage. But I want to show you the paper process right now, because what I'm about to show you, which is the mobile process that we're developing, is based upon the logic of this, on how you develop an equipment-specific lockout-tagout procedure. And basically to do that, you need to know the equipment name and its location, the type of work you're going to do on that equipment, and then there's a whole bunch of different kinds of energy sources that could make that equipment run. And you're going to go figure out what they are and just put a check mark off on those. And when you know what they are, then you're going to note the magnitude and type of the energy source and where the isolation device is located. Then you're going to go back here and number the sequence that you shut stuff off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many pieces of different types of energy that run that equipment, in what sequence you shut it off. Then you might want to know, do you need to bring any kinds of safety equipment out with you in order to do the lockout tagout safely? And finally, what personal protective equipment you should be wearing to do the lockout tagout safely. So that's the process for writing an equipment-specific procedure for any piece of equipment. All right. Then in the code itself, there's some standard generic procedures that you're supposed to follow applied to those equipment-specific, to the equipment-specific knowledge. There's a standard lockout-tagout procedure. If you have to bring the equipment up and attest and adjust it, there's a procedure to do that before you put it back into lockout-tagout. When you're restoring the equipment to service, there's a procedure to follow there. And finally, if you have multiple groups of people working on that same piece of equipment, like the maintenance department and a contractor, they have to follow a procedure together so that each know what the other is doing. All right? And that's what that all looks like in writing. That's right out of the code. All right? Once you've got your written procedure, it's supposed to be located near the equipment, so anybody who arrives at that equipment or accesses it has a procedure at their fingertips to know how to safely shut that machine down. Now, this is a real problem. We probably have 1 million or more assets within the UC system that need to have procedures written for them. I could write procedures for the rest of my life and not even make a dent, right? So how are we going to deal with that? I'll show you pretty soon. But before I do that, I want to talk about an incident that happened at UC Berkeley 3 years ago. All right? We have this beautiful wood planer over here. 1950s vintage German wood planer. Oliver wood planer. Anybody who is a woodworker would love to own this piece of equipment. And it had just been rebuilt. New motors, new bearings, great shape. And we had a brand new, an experienced assistant shop manager that had just come to work with us. He'd been working with us for about 2 weeks. And he was working with a student helper using this machine. And he had an orientation plan in progress, safety and all of that. But it hadn't been completed when this incident occurred. So they were having material feed problems. The manager shut off the planer by the power switch and unplugged the 240 volt plug from the floor. So he's controlling now the plug in his hand, all right? And they waited 2.5 minutes for the machine motion to stop. They lowered the deck to look in and saw what they thought might be a jam. Some wood jammed up in there. So he reached in with his hand to clear the jam. That's his blood on the platen of the machine. The handbrake hadn't been engaged because they didn't know it existed. All right? In fact, the handbrake was this weird oblong looking thing, and it said, kind of in squiggly German script, all stop. So it wasn't even labeled handbrake. All right? The still coasting planer head chewed through these fingers in his hand. All right? Lost his fingernails. Fingerprints were still okay, but there was no salvageable parts that were left, only little pieces. An ambulance ride, lots of pain, 3 days lost time work, permanent disfigurement of his fingers. this Calicious citation was over $28,000 that went to the College of Environmental Design. Of the 7 citations on this accident, the last 5 were for the Lockout Tagout code, even though they had unplugged the machine and had the plug in their control. Okay? So this was the handwritten procedure using this our paper process that we put together the next week, and had this been hanging on that machine that night, this never would have happened. Because they would have known that there were 2 motors, that there's a handbrake, and you never reach in with your body, you use a sacrificial wood stick. Right? So, that guy is now the shop manager of 3 shops for the College of Environmental Design. He's my poster child for shop safety management. And a good friend. And every one of his students goes through a very detailed safety orientation on all the equipment, and every single piece of equipment in that shop has one of these hanging on it. And those students are told to read this before they ever turn a switch on. And they're oriented on these first day in the shop. And he has 6,200 student hours a semester in his shop. So he's pumping a lot of students through his shops. And he's never had an injury. So these things work. And they also work for scanning electron microscopes and for robot preparations inside microfabs. And for your facilities as well. And you can write the paper written process. It does work. The problem is, if you have a lot of locations, or you have a lot of people moving through an area, or these are stuck in a binder somewhere, somebody's office, and the door is locked because they've gone home for the night, the information may not be available when it's needed to the person who really needs it. So how are we going to change that? Well, I'll show you. We're going to be going mobile. Okay? And what that means is that anybody with a UC email address can download an app to their mobile device. Their email address is going to associate them with their campus real estate database so that everybody's using the same local common terminology and the same real estate database. The app is menu-driven and intuitive. It's offered by EH&S as a consultative service, and embedded instructions, user guides are on board, and online training is in development and is going to be available in the fall. All right? The entire Lockout Tagout program for the UC system is managed by me. And I am going to be able to go to any campus's website and know within a few seconds how many procedures are created for this campus. And I can search on any campus on any type of equipment by doing a word search. Okay? Your EH&S folks, as well as your shop safety folks or supervisors, are going to be local super users. You can go in and modify your real estate database for urban legend names. Like, for example, at Berkeley, we have the poultry yard. It's where old research equipment goes to live another day. If I need a capacitor or a plasma chamber or something, I know I can go up to the poultry yard and probably find something I could use for my research, right? Well, if I went to the UC Berkeley real estate database and looked for the poultry yard, I wouldn't find it. It's called the Strawberry Canyon Maintenance and Reuse Facility. Ugh. You know, I want to find the poultry yard. So you can go in and you can amend the real estate database in the Lockout Tagout program and say poultry yard equals Strawberry Canyon Maintenance and Reuse Facility. Okay? So you're going to be able to update it yourselves. The data is stored in the cloud and accessible from anywhere on the planet. All right? And Lotto SOPs bring UC researchers in compliance worldwide with SOP requirements for their grants And EH&S directors and program managers have instant metrics on how their lockout, tagout programs and procedures are being integrated into their facilities and their operations asset databases. Okay? As far as facilities maintenance goes, when you get a work order, if there's a lockout, tagout procedure associated with the asset you're going out to work on, it's going to generate with your work order. All right? And in that work order, the lockout, tagout procedure, there's a job planning section. It's going to tell you how many locks you need to bring with you, what you're going to be locking out, where you have to go when you get to the job site to get the lockout, tagout, install your locks, and other information you need, like PPE and traffic cones and the size of ladders or whatever you need to gain access to those lockout, tagout points, so that you can plan your job and get all that gear onto your truck before you ever leave the maintenance yard. Okay? And it's going to be GPS tagged. So if you go out, if you wind up out looking at an irrigation pump in a field somewhere, and you think, wow, you know, is there a lotto procedure for this thing? You can pick up your device, hit the retrieve procedure button, and it'll say how far do you want to look, and say within a quarter of a mile. It will send you any procedure that was created within a quarter of a mile of where you're standing. All right? So if there's no procedure created, then you're going to create one right on the spot using that methodology we showed before. And I'll show you how that works very shortly. All right? So here's where we are in rolling this thing out to the UC system. All right? We've actually already loaded in the UC Riverside real estate database. We have over 20,000 Riverside data points in our database. We have almost 220,000 system-wide. Some of the campuses are not signed on yet. I was in San Diego earlier this week, talking with the medical center and the campus EH&S directors down there, and they just decided that they're going to sign on as well. UCLA has been an early adopter. They're my poster child. And we have a very active safety director in their housing and dining operations at UCLA. And they're leading the pack as of June 2nd with 158 procedures written. But there's actually more now. Okay? But you can also see that we've just started rolling this out. The earliest we started rolling it out was November of 14, and there really hasn't been a lot of training given yet, and the training is coming. So let's create a procedure. For those of you who've never seen one of these before, you're looking at the screen of my iPad here, and you can see in the upper right-hand corner SBN Lotto. That stands for Simple But Needed Lotto, and Simple But Needed is a third-party vendor I've been working with. So this just lives, it's what I call an app, and it lives on the screen of your iPad. And when you press that button, it opens you to the launch pad. Okay? And from this, you can create a new procedure. You can retrieve procedures that you've already created. You can manage procedures, verify them that they're still accurate to the world, and you can actually sync or get help. So let me explain what a few of these things are. First of all, help is some onboard help. If you can't find or you're having problems managing this thing, you can go there and look and see if there might be some help available. All right? You can retrieve procedures where you're looking for equipment name or asset ID, where you're the creator, or you can go back to the launch pad. We're going to go back there. You can sync procedures. So, for example, if you are out in the field making procedures, and let's say you were in a steam tunnel or a vault or somewhere where you didn't have Wi-Fi connectivity to the cloud, you can still go ahead and make a procedure. Everything's right on your iPad, all right? And you can make the procedure and save it to your iPad until you get Wi-Fi connectivity. And as the more procedures you make, that little 0 is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it's going to change from blue to red. All right? All right, to remind you that you've got a bunch of procedures saved on your device that you haven't synced up to the cloud yet. So what I tell people is that because wherever you sync from, it geo-position tags the procedures to your location. Oops, we're updating locations. I hit a button. I'm actually logged in as though I'm working at UCLA today. So it's now going out to the cloud and updating all the locations from UCLA's real estate database. And it's roughly 62,000 locations. So while it's doing that, I'm going to continue talking. So we can do sync, but you always want to sync from a location that's kind of close to where the procedures are. So if I'm down in a steam tunnel and I come up out of the steam tunnel, I want to kind of sync the procedures as close to the access door as possible. Wherever I get my Wi-Fi signal, I want to sync the procedures there because that's the last place I could go going into the steam tunnel where I could retrieve a procedure. And I want the procedure to be associated with my location. Okay? So let's see what we can do about creating a procedure. So this is the procedure creation screen. And for the sake of our demonstration today, I'm going to create a procedure, lockout tagout procedure for my lectern here. So I'm going to press that button and I'm going to call it the UCR lectern. All right. And if there was a barcode or an asset tag or a QR label that's associated with this, I could scan it and it would populate it with that information and link the procedure to that asset. All right. For the general scope of work, there's a whole bunch of things I might be wanting to lock and tag this lectern out with. But for today we're going to, oops, hit the wrong button. I'm going to select maintenance and mothballing. All right. And just to make sure that it is my lectern it is the actual lectern I'm going to be looking at, I'm going to take several pictures of it. Okay. From different angles. Okay. And now, if this lectern is associated with someone like Jeanette, I can put her name in here, and I can even include her phone number on how to get a hold of her if I need to know something about the lectern. Now I'm done, and I'm going on to the location. So now I'm going to access the real estate database. And because I'm actually logged into UCLA, I'm going to search on the Strathmore building, which is where EH&S is at UCLA, and I'm going to put it in the Strathmore building. Now, the Strathmore building is 4 stories with a basement, and EH&S is on the 4th floor, so I'm going to select that, and I'm going to actually put it in room 400, which I happen to know is Colin's office. Colin is the EH&S director of UCLA. All right. Now, I'm going to look at the energy sources for my lectern. I can have anything from compressed gases to different kinds of electrical power, to fluids under pressure, to fuels, to heat and cold, to mechanicals, suspended weights, to steam and vacuum and different kinds of water. And there might be even some special instructions I want to include for my lockout tagout. But for the sake of argument, I'm going to do mechanical suspended weight and hydraulics and my electrical for our lectern today. All right? Now that I've selected those, I'm going to order and set the values for them. All right? So my mechanical suspended weight, I'm going to say, well, my lectern weighs 300 pounds. And the lockout tagout equipment might be bars, chains, or other things. I'm going to just say blocks and support stands. Okay? And I might want to take a photo of that, like that, and use the photo and say, install your support stand here. Okay? Now, if I had some hydraulics on here, I could say I have a 500 psi lectern, and the source was a pump. Oops, pump. Pump 2. All right? And I might want to have a bleed valve and other locking method, which I could say was, let's see, what would be a hydraulic line? Put in a blind. All right, and I'll save that. And I could even take several photos of that. Saying, okay, and just to make sure. And then finally, my main power. Well, I'm going to say my lectern is running on 15 amps, 120 volts, single phase, and the lockout equipment might be disconnected and use a plug lock. All right? And so what I often will do is I'll take a big photo of the entire thing, show where the power is, then I'll add another photo showing what it's supposed to look like. If I can get the darn thing open, there we go. When it's properly locked out. Okay? Now I'm telling a story with photos. I don't have to read or write English very well to know how to lock and safely tag out my lectern. All right? Now you'll notice as I've been entering information, my red is going to green, and I have done all of my energy sources, so I hit my done button, and I go back to my main screen. Now I want to see what my procedure is looking like as I'm going, so I can go up at the right-hand corner and hit print preview, and here's the procedure that we've got so far. Our UCR lectern, it's at the Strathmore building, floor 4, room 400, it's Colin's office. It's being created at 11:51 a.m. I can contact Jeanette at her phone number about it if I need to, and here are the equipment photos to make sure I'm actually looking at the equipment. Here's my job planning section. There are no safety processes or anything yet, but I do have some locks and tags that I can bring and know that I'm going to be doing different valves and things. There is my lockout sequence with photos showing me how to safely lock out this device. All right. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I'm going to finish it up. So, are there any safety processes that I need? Do I need access control, pedestrian control, traffic control, any communication plan? Am I going into any kind of a confined space? Yeah, probably I want to have to verify that my electrical is shut off. Are there any fire safety issues or other things I need to, hot work permit? Can enter all of that. Any kind of safety equipment or access equipment. Do I need an aerial lift or ladders? Do I need traffic cones? Any kind of cleaning supplies or a cell phone or communication device? Why not? All right. Do I need 4 gas meters or entry rescue set up on site? Probably a 1,000-volt test meter would be a good idea. Any specialty tools? Maybe a flashlight. All right. And finally, do I need any personal protective equipment for my head, my ears, my eyes? Yeah, safety glasses is a good idea. Face, any breathing, any body? Yeah, let's use long pants and long sleeves, cotton work gloves, maybe steel-toed work boots. All right? So there's my procedure. Okay? Now, who did this? Jim G. All right. And just to make sure it was Jim G, he signs it. Okay? So, how's my procedure looking now? There's my safety processes, my safety equipment, all my lotto gear. There's my basic procedure. There are my energy sources and how I go to safely about locking and tagging them out, shown in pictorial form. And there's the standard boilerplate from the code right after it. Okay?
Jim, I have a question.
Sure.
So this will be uploaded into a cloud where only OP can access, or anybody from any?
Anybody with a UC email address will be able to access the procedures in real time. So we've looked at that. Now we're going to generate the procedure. So it's saving the procedure to the cloud with the location information. And now it says, do I want to email it to somebody? Or do I want to just go back to the launch pad and do something with it later? So we're going to go back to the launch pad because I don't need to email it. There was a question over here.
Yeah, your application pretty much giving everybody the certification to make such call, put it on the internet. With limited knowledge, you're giving them the okay to do so?
So the question was, the application appears to be giving access to anybody for making lockout tagout procedures that may or may not have enough knowledge to do it in a safe way or in a correct way. Professional way. And the answer is that's correct, because right now we have no procedures. All right? We're going to have an extensive training program. There's going to be online trainings as well as what I'm doing today. This is an introductory training to this process. But the idea is we are going to enable people to write their own procedures. If you have a UC email address, you're going to be able to download this to your mobile device and write your own procedures. And your email address is going to associate that procedure with your campus. When you go to the online web management tool, which you're seeing now, you're only going to see the procedures associated with your campus. You're not going to see UCLA's or UC Irvine's or San Diego's, just Riverside. Okay?
That's all you need, though, right?
But that's all you need.
If I need to
That's
know
the
what somebody
assumption
did
is.
in the past, I
All right?
can follow his procedure.
If you need to see more, we can talk and we can give you access to other people's.
Yeah.
But you have to understand the databases are going to become huge. And do you really need to see 1 million procedures?
So that become the UC Riverside intellectual property?
Yeah. Right. So let me show you what you can do with this now. So let's look at first at maps. We're going to go look at UCLA's heat maps for their lockout tagout procedures. There's the state of California, and wherever you see a red lock, a procedure has been created on UCLA's database. All right? So I use UCLA because they have the largest database right now in the lockout tagout program. And so they give me a lot of things to show and demonstrate to people. And so you can see where I've been for the past 2 months looking at this, because I'm the one who's doing it in Modesto and Merced and Anaheim and San Diego. All right? There's folks from UCLA not going to these locations. All right? That's what I'm just saying. But let's zoom in to Los Angeles for a minute. So these procedures are done by UCLA because they represent different locations where UCLA has operations going on. The lowest one down here on our screen is actually the hangars where the Spruce Goose, Howard Hughes Spruce Goose, was built. And UCLA has a remote research facility there doing robotics research in architecture and engineering design. In the middle one near Culver City, they have a remote housing and dining operation. They have actually a big dormitory and some big kitchens in that area. And then the main campus is up there by Westwood and Holmby Hills, okay? So let's go up there and look at that for a minute. And I'm going to switch over to satellite view. So we can start to look at our campus from the air and see where these procedures are being assigned. So here's the northwest quadrant of UCLA main campus, and this is where they have large housing and dining operations. And the guy who's adopted this process and run with it pretty quickly early on, an early adopter, is the Department Safety Coordinator for Housing and Dining. All right? Now, I don't know who he's got writing procedures for him, but I can click on any of these locks and say, oh, there's a food prep table. on the 4th floor of that dormitory in the West Wing. And somebody wrote a procedure for it. All right? What's this one? It's a vending machine. All right, what's this one? It's a toaster. All right? You laugh about stuff like that, but you think about a toaster, it has electricity, it has heat, it has any number of things that could hurt you, right? So, in housing and dining, they're off and running. Now, if I scan over to another part of the campus, let's say I'm looking at, UCLA School of Theater, Film, and Television. Well, I bet you they've got several TV studios in that building with no lockout tagout procedures written for them. Who do you think I need to call? Dude, you're managing your television studios. Why don't I see any lockout tagout procedures written for your operations? All right? Can I come over and introduce your work crews to how you do this? So I start seeing lots of red locks on the roof of your building. All right? Now you're starting to see the power of heat maps. Because I don't know the UCLA film and television studio theater dance people. I don't know them, but I know they need to have procedures written in that building. And I started giving them a call.
They got exhaust fans.
They got all kinds of stuff going on there, right? So that's how you can start to use this. Now, as far as results go, we have 170 procedures loaded and written right now for UCLA. And they appear in blocks of 10 on this screen. You can see the UCR lectern is right at the top. That's the one I just completed. All right? But there's many others. Now let's say we wanted to go, I don't know, let's look at a pump. How many pumps have we had procedures written for? Wow, we got several condensate return pumps, fire water pumps, scrubber pumps, cooling water pumps. All right? So there you go. And what would that, let's look at a fire water pump. We can actually go and look at it. Never seen this one before. I have no idea what it's going to look like. Okay. It's a fire pump controller. Engineering Building 4, first floor, room 12, 153, southeast corner. There's the equipment serial name and number. 3 views of the equipment. The general scope is maintenance and repair. There's our safety equipment that we need to bring, the number of locks and tags, what we're locking out when we get there. There's our personal protective equipment we need to bring with us. The procedure we need to follow. Here are our energy sources with no pictures taken on the energy sources. So there's a training opportunity for this person, whoever made these procedures. And there's their John Smith. John Smith seems to write a lot of procedures at UCLA. And there's the stuff right out of the code. Okay? So that's how we're going to start managing lockout tagout here at the University of California.